thank you everybody for joining us for today's webinar covering what's new in Security Center 5.8. We're really excited to unveil everything that we've worked on in this new release that's been available for the last 3 weeks. My name is Jean-Pierre Picard. I'm Manager of Product Marketing at Genetec, and I'm in charge of marketing for the Security Center platform. With me on the line is the Director for our Platform Product Group, Mathieu Darsigny. Mathieu, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. I'm happy to be here. Hello, everyone, and let's hope you have a good webinar.
All right. So today's agenda will cover 3 key pillars of the new capabilities in Security Center 5.8. We're going to start by talking about the new dashboard task. We're going to spend some time looking at the vision for this new task, what it can do, and some examples. After that, we'll dive into the challenge of cybersecurity, visibility, and management. And the last section we'll focus on the new Genetec Mobile app and talk about how it can help collaborate field and desktop operators better. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the session, but you can send your questions at any time during the webinar by using the right-hand side questions box that is labeled chat. We'll do our best to answer them as the session goes along. We are recording today's webinar, so you will receive a copy by email somewhere next week. This will allow you to share it with colleagues or review it yourself. And we'll do our best to keep this presentation wrapped in about 50 minutes. We have plenty of time for questions and answers. Now, I would like to start today's webinar to ask you, everybody on the line, a question. And that question is, how often do you upgrade your security system? If we could get a few answers here, the type of distribution that we have. All right. So I'm seeing a pretty good distribution here between the first 3 answers, every release, once a year, or every 2 or 3 years, which is interesting. This does map out to a lot of the info we get from our own customers that, some actually like to upgrade every release, whereas in multiple situations, the upgrade process itself takes quite a lot of effort, so it will be less frequent. Right. So let's jump back to our presentation and dive right into it. So I've mentioned that Security Center 5.8 is a big release. Right here, we have a few of the main new items introduced in Security Center 5.8. I already mentioned verbally the dashboard, a new mobile app, and some cybersecurity visibility-related features. But there's a lot more to it, from a lot of new unified analytics that are being introduced or expanded, new hardware that's supported by access control, direct integration with the clearance digital evidence management system right from the Security Center interface. But because we have a limited amount of time today, we're really going to focus on 3 cornerstones that are driving innovation in the platform. The first one is the ability to personalize your platform. This will tie deeply with the dashboard task, and we'll talk about what we mean by personalization in just a minute. Later on today, we'll talk about knowing what your exposure is in terms of cybersecurity and how you can better manage it. And finally, we'll talk about keeping your team in sync as they assess events, as they respond to incidents. So to start our first section off, one of the things that really is evident when you look at modern security interfaces is that they've been built around answering 2 very specific questions, and they answer them quite well. The first one is, what should I be doing right now? And this is tied to the monitoring and alarm management capabilities of most modern platforms. If you look at Security Center, the unified alarm management capabilities, but also the expansion with mission control automation and standard operating procedures really are in line with this question that every one on the line has to answer on a day-to-day basis. And the second question is, what happened? So once an incident is closed and you want to figure out what happened so you can either better respond in the future or maybe prevent this incident from happening, that's where you start looking at the investigation tools available within platforms. But there's a bigger question that security systems do not provide enough information to answer today. And that question is, how is your day going? Are things under control? The fact that you have ongoing alarms, is that out of the ordinary? Is the volume itself out of the ordinary, even if it's under control at the moment? And that is where dashboards come in, and they really lean on the ability to personalize your platform to achieve a tailored view to answer that question. Dashboard help you take a 10,000-foot view of what's happening in your system. And the goal here is to consolidate all of your key performance indicators in a single screen. Dashboards are built on 3 pillars. The first one is the ability to achieve comprehensive visualization of the different events and data points that you need to answer that question. The second pillar is the ability to have up-to-date information visible at all time. This is not something that can be refreshed every now and then. You need to be able, at a glance, to tell exactly what's happening. And the last pillar, and one that is very challenging to answer typically, is making it possible to tailor it to your day. So let's dive into it. And Mathieu, let's talk about comprehensive visualization and what can be shown in dashboard. Maybe you can walk us through some of the different entities that could be displayed on a dashboard in Security Center 5.8.
Yeah, so with the initial release of the dashboard feature, we tried to build an extensive toolkit that allows our user to fashion their dashboard based on their needs. So obviously one of the first items you can do is display a tile that will show a device in your system. So similarly to a tile that you would have in a monitoring task, you can display a tile in the dashboard that shows a camera, a door, an intrusion area, or LPR camera. Also, you could be displaying a map. So if you want to compose a UI of with campus or building and want to display and provide better situational awareness in your dashboard, you can display a plan manager map in a dashboard. Also, to allow accessing third-party tool or third-party information source, you could add a web page. So this is similar to an HTML tile plugin. But if you look at the example here, we displayed a little widget that would display a Twitter feed that can be refreshed in real time, so you can follow news and updates from a specific source. Also, this is where the dashboard becomes very powerful. You could embed reports inside of the dashboard interface. So we allow you 3 types of visualization with report. So the first one you see here display a top count of a specific saved task. So for example, this one would show you the last 5 access in the building. And again, it's dynamic, so this would update automatically based on the period that the refresh is configured. The second one would leverage the visual report. So you can display, instead of displaying a top count of result, you could have it with a visual representation, which is bar chart, a historical graph, or a pie chart. And the last one would be a count view. So this can be useful to see visual indicators. So for example, what you see here would be a visitor dashboard that shows you how many visitors came in, how many are currently in the building, and how many have checked out. This could also be useful for health monitoring to see how many cameras are up or down, but just quickly view a count of results in a report. Also, it's useful to note that this can be also color-coded based on rule that you put in. So if a certain threshold is exceeded or it's below a certain threshold, you can customize the background color of the counts window. We also have a very specific widget that we will cover a little bit more, but which is the security score. It's an automation of our security hardening guide. It displays you how many steps you have completed in the hardening guide and how many are uncompleted. So this is really useful from an administrative point of view to review the security of your security center system. And last but not the least, we have several health widgets that can be used again from an administrative point of view to view various aspects of your system, whether it's the server, the devices, and see what's their availability, if they're up or down.
So, Mathieu, you touched a bit on the fact that up-to-date information is available in the reports. One thing that I think bears mentioning is that if you look at a lot of the different widgets that Mathieu you've just presented, they're available in other tasks in Security Center, whether that is the monitoring task or different reports. But if we look at a report right here, where we would typically see charts at the bottom, or we would see the top results, one of the things that really comes apparent when you compare them to, let's say, a dashboard with similar information is the fact that it's not designed around the same use cases. I mean, if we look at the report, the goal here is to be able to investigate, right? Which means that the data that you're showing will not change while you are exploring it. But if you look at a dashboard, there is none of that concept of being able to interact with it. And I think one of the key pillar that people, everyone online can benefit from understanding is that reports really focus on that, this interactive approach to investigation, the ability to filter, to dive into specific data points by reviewing attached information. One of the core advantages of a unified platform is the ability to tie different entities together so that a access control event could be tied to video camera feeds and to other systems information. But on a dashboard, what you're looking at is at a glance information. And so they are predefined and they update automatically. And this really changes the way you interact with your data and makes it possible to consume more data at once, because the goal here is really getting a snapshot at the moment you are looking at it and not a snapshot based on filters you are applying and then exploring further. I think the last pillar tailored to your data is one that is really interesting. Mathieu, a lot of the widgets that you showed, the different use cases will vary on a per user basis. So how have we made it so that the dashboard task provides something that customers can modify and adapt to their day-to-day needs?
Well, here's an example that will show you how to bring a dashboard together. So on the right-hand side, what you've seen is the widget pane that shows you the building block that you can add to a dashboard. So this one would show you a device widget, which allow you to display a tile with a camera. You can obviously position it wherever you want and size it however you want it or need it. And really here, what you see is the ability also to fuse various data sources from Security Center. So we've put a camera there and a door. So we use elements from Omnicast and Synergist there. We've added a map there from Plan Manager to show you the campus here at the Genetec building with the cameras in the parking and the door on one of the building. And you see there that it's very rich and customizable. So if you need data to monitor the entry of a parking, you can have cameras viewing that parking, and also the various auto view component that shows you the plate being read. If you need to monitor doors in a specific facility, you can then show the trends on the activity of that door. So really, the piece tailoring to your day is we allow you to build the interface that will provide you with as much information as it is relevant for you to be efficient in your operation, whatever the sources in the Genetec system is. So it's not focused on one specific piece of the product, but we really fuse together all the various part of the Security Center ecosystem.
And I think to really explain what can be achieved, it would be good to look at a few examples. So let's take a first example here, built around more of a monitoring scenario. Can you walk us through some of the different components we see here and what their inspiration was?
Yes, so here you see again a very good example that shows you the fusion of all the Genetec product into a single interface. So we have a campus scenario that shows you video elements, so you can see cameras on the map, you can see access control events and status based on the door, but also if you see the widget, the count widget in the center that shows you the dinner hall occupancy, this data could be coming from access control from a people counting value, but it also could be populated by a people counting value from an analytic integration. So really, it's really abstracted from that point of view. We also show auto view elements in there with the free flow widget, but also really one thing that is really powerful is with the intercom integration at the bottom right, you can also interact with the dashboard. So you could use the dashboard to see events coming into the intercom, answer them, and interact with the person required assistance or anything. If you look at the right-hand side of the dashboard, then we can add additional source of information that would be relevant to the operator. So either the report that shows you the active trend in the system, the badging at the entrance door, and then on the bottom right, really this one is interesting. This is a custom widget that we've developed because our interface is open to third-party integration, but this is an integration we've done with Outlook that shows the current schedule for the day for this operator. So it's not a built-in widget within our toolkit, but the dashboard task allow to extension to third-party integration. So this is a very interesting point because it's going to be leveraged by the various plugin integration that we do and various applications that we do. So all the upcoming integration that we do will add their little piece and information to the dashboard environment. So this feature will evolve as the Security Center portfolio evolves as well.
So this is a good example of how being able to pull data in different visualizations can enhance a monitoring type of activities. But let's switch gear and talk a bit about system management. And what we have here is a dashboard that is really meant for a system administrator, an IT type of person. Can you walk us through the different visualizations we have here?
Yeah. Here again, the use case would be really a system administrator. So you would have this in your server room, and from a quick look, you can see what's happening in your environment. So if you look on the left-hand side, what we use there is visual report on standard Security Center report, just to show first what's the firmware status in my ecosystem. So is everything up to date, or is there any update available? So this leverages the camera configuration report or hardware inventory report. Sorry. The other one would show you the storage status in your archiver. So you can use again the visual report on archiver storage to see what's the status of all your storage in your environment. So on the center part, you see the security score widget that I touched briefly a little bit. So again, this shows you the status of implementation on your hardening guide. So it's interesting to say that security comes at the cost of usability. So this helps you do choices whether you want to enforce a very strict security that could be a little bit painful for your user, or you choose to leave some rules open at the benefit of the user. But this way, we automate it in the system and allow you to take better decision and see how the system is configured. Last but not the least, I would like to get your attention at the bottom right, where you see 4 little square colored. That would come from our building management integration, so our BACnet, Modbus, or OPC integration, which acquire information from various sensors for building management. So here we could use it to monitor the temperature in the server room or humidity. And as I mentioned previously with the count widget, you can build rules in them to toggle the color if something is not going well. So the goal is really grab the attention of the administrator quickly if something goes wrong. So right now what we would see here is that humidity might be a little high because it's turning orange. If it goes above a certain threshold, we would flip the visualization window to red to see that something goes badly. So again, the goal here is to show you how you can monitor your infrastructure, but really quickly with visual indicator that shows you exactly what's happening on your system.
And something to bring the attention to here as well is the new archiver usage report that is powering the visual report here. I'm seeing some questions coming in. Yes, it's a new report that is included in Security Center 5.8. Now, if we look at another use case, and this time we're pivoting toward more of a large distributed system with focus on operations. In this example, a utilities-based one. Can you walk us through the scenario that inspired this dashboard?
Yeah, this one was based on a use case from an energy company. So basically, they wanted to have a view to monitor a power substation. So really, what's critical there is monitor that everything goes well, and if there's anybody on site and there's a problem, they need to evacuate people there. So on the top left side, you see a Time Manager map that has alerts going on due to either an intrusion detection area being triggered, or any other event that could have triggered the generator to overheat or who have a surge in power. So basically, from the map, you can see what's happening and have a quick view if there's anything going on site. You have a couple of cameras that films the various critical infrastructure inside the perimeters. But what's really interesting there is, again, through the plugins infrastructure and the building management plugins that we have on the top, right-hand side, you can see that we can monitor the activity in terms of what's the temperature in the last 5-10 minutes, what was the current on the main line to see if everything goes well. And then again, the security of the people on site is really important if something goes wrong. So you can add access control data to see who's exactly on site through occupancy report, and then you could also have use it for a mustering task to see if you need to evacuate the point and have people badge at a certain place, see how many people have badged in at the mustering station. So again, this is the scenario there was a critical scenario where you need to see quickly what's happening on your premises, and then if there needs to be an action, who's on site and who needs to evacuate quickly, and the dashboard is able to fuse all the information from the site and present it in a very efficient way for the operators.
So in a centralized monitoring scenario, you can imagine how this type of dashboard could be created for every remote location and be used to get at a glance full status of those remote locations should an incident occur. So this is an interesting change of pace, whereas the other dashboards were meant to be always on. This one here is really meant to provide a comprehensive overview in a few seconds. Now, one last example before we move on, because I think we could go for the entire session through dashboard example, but I really like this one because it really leverages pretty much the entire portfolio of Genetec solutions. This is obviously a traffic management related dashboard. Can you walk us through how someone would use it?
Yeah, typically here what we were aiming at the scenario is a control center in a city. So you would have various pieces of the product that comes into play, and that again needs to be displayed so we can have a quick view and see what's happening in the city. So if we start from the left, we incorporated the web elements there to show what's the current temperature in the city. We have a FEMA alert FEMA alert widget that shows you the status of a terrorist threat, and also a Twitter feed just at the bottom from TweetDeck, so to see what news is happening in the city. Of course, we use Plan Manager with the Traffic Sense integration to monitor the main link in the city and view traffic status. And then at the bottom of the map, the message board integration part of the Traffic Sense portfolio shows you what's the current status of the message board, and also allow you to change the current display if needs be. Then at the right-hand side of the first screen, you see the status of incidents. So that could be provided by mission control integration, showing you how many active incidents are in progress, how many incidents have been closed today, and what's current status based on the category of incident. And then we have a city graph component that shows you integration with a CAD system, allowing the display of availability of resources such as fire trucks and ambulance. So if there needs to be a call for backup for more fire resource in the city. Then on the second screen was more of you see the status of the various parking in the city using the auto view component there, and then obviously the various video camera filming critical main roads in the city, and also at the bottom right, integration from Traffic Sense to show you the flow of traffic based on the time of the day in those various things. So here the goal was to show you that it goes again, it can be customized, and it can fuse all the information from the full Genetec portfolio inside of a very rich environment.
So to wrap up our discussion on Live Dashboard, I think it bears noting that this is a feature that is included with every Security Center packages when you're on 5.8. So this is available and will take advantage of your full system and environment as soon as you upgrade. All right, so we're going to move on to our second section where we'll talk a bit about cybersecurity, and I'd like to poll everyone on the line again a bit about their challenges related to cybersecurity. So which of these challenges do you experience on a cybersecurity perspective? Right, so very interesting. So, Mathieu, one of the things we're seeing here is one of the main challenges identifying vulnerabilities and the solutions to implement to tackle those vulnerabilities. And this is a really nice entry point to our next section here, which will talk a bit about the security score that you just mentioned. So let me go back real quick to our presentation. There we go. So one of the things that we've been talking about recently with a lot of customers, either at trade shows or at site visit, was the fact that keeping the system and data secure is not just about authentication and encryption, right? And there are a few metrics that we'd like to share here. So Mathieu, why don't you go a bit through why we are bringing up this point more and more with customers?
Let me ask you a question first. So do you know what's the percentage of systems that have at least one camera using the default credentials in their system?
Well, this is a basic step in the installation process, so I would assume it would be in very low percentages.
Well, the number is actually 23%. So if you take a look at it, if you take that into context, so with the data we've collected on several sites, we've been able to find out that like 1 out of 4 systems have at least one camera with default credentials. So what does that mean? That means 1 out of 4 systems can have a camera be accessed by the credential that I can easily Google if I have the make and model of the camera. So all those default values are available simply from a Google search on the internet. So that means if I can take an analogy based on your intro saying it's not just about authentication and encryption, so you could have the most secure door in the world, very bulletproof, with several locks on it. If you don't lock the locks, you're not secured. So you can have the best authentication mechanism in the world, you can have the best encryption in the world, but if you use publicly available credential, which is out of the box credential to access the camera, you're not secured. Another question, and what's the percentage of camera that use the latest firmware version?
So obviously this one requires some amount of work, but I would still expect it to be the majority of cameras would be upgraded over time.
Yeah, actually it's only 30%. So that means that 70% of what we've audited in our data mining were cameras not using the latest firmware version. What does that mean? That means that you potentially have cameras that have vulnerabilities, and some of the time those are publicly disclosed vulnerabilities because camera uses Linux OSs or publicly available web servers such as Apache, and critical vulnerability to those components are publicly available on the web. So again, knowing with simple Google search, you can find out publicly disclosed vulnerability on specific OSs. And going back to the analogy at the beginning, whether you have the strongest encryption and strongest authentication, if one of the components on the camera have vulnerabilities, your system is at risk. So camera manufacturer monitors those vulnerabilities, and then they publish a firmware version that patches those vulnerabilities. So it's really critical, and it's really a vital part of security to keep the camera firmware to the latest version.
So this is a good point, and I think this also ties to the answer we were seeing in the poll, where identifying vulnerabilities and the solutions to close them is one of the main challenges faced out in the field. So that brings us to the second themes of our webinar today, which is managing your exposure with Security Center 5.8. There are 3 main new capabilities that are really taking a different approach to cybersecurity. Whereas, in the past we focused on adding extra layers of encryptions and extra layers of defenses, I think 5.8 really focuses a lot on visibility. So you've mentioned the security score widget. Can you just go over real quick how it works, what it automates, what is still manual, and how this number, this score that we see there, is calculated?
Yeah, exactly. So basically with the Security Center 5.7, we've published our security hardening guide. So basically this was a checklist that allow you to go through that list and secure and harden your Security Center installation. So obviously our goal would be to be secured by default, but as I mentioned previously, security comes at the drawback of usability. So we take some choices favoring usability in some point, favoring security in another, which makes it that a Security Center installation is not always fully hardened after installation. So we've provided you in the past with the list to go through to harden the system based on your need. But what we did in 5.8 is automate that list. So inside the product, you can access the security score widget. We'll show you how many items in the the hardening guide that you have completed. And some of those items are automated. So for example, we'll recommend you to set a strong password to the admin user. So if that wasn't done, you'll see a little mark that tells you it didn't happen. If you change the admin password, then automatically this will toggle to checked, and your completed item will increase, and your uncompleted item will decrease. So a fair amount of pieces in the system are automated, mostly everything related to the core components, so password management, user management, pieces related to the infrastructure, so databases and Windows. There are some items that require manual checkup, so we put them as recommendation, but do not automate them inside of the core, inside of the score. So those are mainly related to video access control component. But as we progress and move further in our development effort, we'll try to fully automate all the pieces of the hardening guide. And again, the goal there is not really to achieve 100% mark. It's really a decision-making tool. So we display you what's your current status in terms of security and how you can improve it based on your operational needs. So if certain items is a big drawback on your usability, we help you take informed decision in hardening the system.
So by combining the security score widget with some of the features available already in the system through the Genetec update service, such as the status of the firmware, whether it's using the latest version or not, you can get a good visibility of potential actions you need to take. But actually taking those actions can be time consuming, especially when it comes to rolling out firmware across a large part of devices. So can you talk to a bit about what we're doing to make this process easier?
Yeah, so basically we've added firmware recommendation in the software. So that is not part of the general availability of Security Center. This will be rolled out with the SR1. But basically inside of the hardware inventory report, you can access the information where within your pool of devices. So if you're using a certain manufacturer of camera, we will check all your firmware, and then based on the indication we have in the backend, we can recommend you a firmware. So we can tell you this camera is out of date, this camera has a critical security vulnerability, we recommend you this firmware. Then from the hardware inventory report, with a single click, you can choose to act upon it. So basically download the firmware locally and push it automatically to the camera. So we do not manage this automatically. We provide you the tool to take a decision and then a quick usability shortcut to act upon it. But we do require some decision making from the end user part to take that decision. But what's really new is really we give you the information based on our recommendation, and if there needs to take an action, we've introduced a quick acceleration to allow upgrading the camera to the specified firmware version.
Now, one thing that is really important to mention is that this new feature does require coordination with our various technology partners, and as such, the initial list of supported manufacturer models will be restricted somewhat. So the plan is to start with the platinum partners and to expand this list over time. So I would just advise our listeners right now to consult the release notes once the firmware vault is available for a full list of available cameras and manufacturers. But if you do not see your manufacturer in there, bring it up to your Genetec representative and bring it up to your camera representative if need be. This can help speed things along. But this is an exciting addition where these firmwares will be fully validated and tested before they're made available. So it's also going to take away that step from the decision process. Now, one of the last non-technical challenges that really keeps popping up from a cybersecurity perspective is the fact that because it's time-consuming, very often we give access rights to users or user groups for a temporary purpose and never go back and remove those access rights. So we're introducing a new tool called the Privileged Troubleshooter. Can you walk our audience as to what the Privileged Troubleshooter will do and how it's different from our current rights management visualization?
Yeah, basically, really here is the goal is to audit and quickly review the security. So right now in a Genetec system, if you want to see who has access to this camera or who is allowed to move the PTZ on the specific camera, who is allowed to manually unlock this specific door, it can be quite a rigorous task. So the privileged troubleshooter allow you to view security in various aspects of it. So the first section of the troubleshooter really shows you on an entity base who has access to this entity. So the example we see right now on the screen is for a specific alarm. What are the various permission that we allow on this alarm? So you would see here that administrator have all the permission, while security operator also have all the permissions, but then everybody in building management group cannot access or do anything on this alarm. So really for a specific entity, who has the right to do something and who doesn't have the right to do something. Then the next section of the troubleshooter is really on a user base. So you want to review all the privileges and the permissions for a specific user. So this one is really the same view as what we currently have in the config tool under the user management section, but we added it in the troubleshooter. So this way we can have a one-stop shop with all the security review feature. And the last one is really from a privilege base. So if you want to see who has the specific privileges, so I mentioned earlier, moving a PTZ or manually unlocking a door, then you can select the specific privilege, and then you will see all the users that have access to this privilege. So really the goal here is to allow the capability to audit and review the system quickly.
Right. So obviously, just providing more visibility is already a great start, but we're always working on new layers of defense for system security. So in 5.8, we're also introducing the Genetec Update service directly in the config tool. Previously, it was a separate application that had to be consulted by itself, but now you'll be able to see the status of new software available for your Genetec products directly in the config tool, and you'll be able to leverage this to prepare upgrades directly in there. We're also rolling out new, more advanced security settings for cameras with specific partners. This is an ongoing effort, providing new encryption capabilities, leveraging certificates, and this is on a manufacturer by manufacturer basis. So I encourage anybody to look at the release notes for more detail. This is quite extensive. We've also added a new defense against a brute force attack in the system, where it will prevent new login attempts from specific devices while providing login access to other users. So the goal here is to stop the attack before it affects system performance without restricting new logins to legitimate users. We've also introduced new lower privileges options to run macro agents to close down some of the different possibilities that could be executed by macros from a system security perspective. Turn on the database of Security Center's directory to be encrypted by default, and also added encryption of video in transit by default. Now, before we move on to talk about the new application, I'm just going to send us back to another short poll. And I'd like to know what you and your team uses mobile application and security to use today. What are the main tasks you aim to accomplish? So tracking, managing alarms remotely, accessing some of the entities such as cameras or door while you're out of the office, or while you're on patrol, right? So whether you're not in the building, maybe you're at home or on travel, you want to check in, or you want to check them while you're out and about looking at responding to an incident. And finally, using them to coordinate response to alarms. Right. So I can see here that by and large, the most popular use case is actually accessing different entities. So doors, cameras, maybe intrusion, depending on which systems and apps you are using while you're out of the office. So if we go back to our presentation, we're going to talk a bit about our new mobile app, Genetec Mobile. And this answer actually tracks a lot with some of the different discussion we have with different Security Center users, and correlates with some of the capabilities in Security Center Mobile, the previous app that we have available. Security mobility today is really focused on remote access. They've been designed as a tool to extend what is traditionally a desktop-based environment. Whether you're using a TIC client or a web client, most of the capabilities are restricted to a mouse and screen and keyboard interface. This means that it's a siloed experience. If you have an access control system, a video system, intrusion, typically you will have to switch between applications to access the different entities, the different alarms. Navigation is based around list. You will see that if you want to access a specific camera, you have to tap on a building, tap on a floor, and then find the right camera in there, and then you'll see the camera. And because the focus is really on remote access, there are a lot of missed opportunities as to what we could do with modern mobile devices. You just have to turn to the apps that we use for personal reasons on a daily basis, right? Those apps help us find out what's nearby. Today, you can shop for a new house or a new apartment using a map-based interface, which is really much more convenient because what you're looking at is something that's close to a certain location. But this is not unlike the way we actually choose which devices we'd like to see in a security system. Mobile apps outside of security also give us much faster access to key information. You can look here, for example, at a simple preview of a restaurant that's nearby the Genetec offices. If you ever visit us, I invite you to give these guys a visit. Very good food. But what I really care when I'm choosing a restaurant in an area that I'm not familiar with is, are other people saying it's good? How far is it? And what's the price range? I don't want to see the entire menu right away, right? And mobile apps help us coordinate and connect. When I'm going to a trade show, we typically use WhatsApp to share location because, as you know, you don't know the city, and it's very hard to describe. I'm in front of this building, but there's 100 other people. So these apps that we use on a daily basis really have a much greater scope than what we do with our security apps. And that's where Genetec Mobile comes in. Genetec Mobile is a new application that is replacing Security Center Mobile that will really take the vision that we have for security in a much grander direction. Genetec Mobile is location-based. You can see on the video right here that your primary interface as you log in is map-based, and you can see nearby all the devices that are accessible to you. One key fact also is that it provides single tap access to current status, whether that is live video, the status of a door, or the latest reads that happen in real time for a ALPR system. And from there, you can quickly access more advanced control by simply swiping or tapping on the different devices you've selected. So this gets us much faster to what we're looking for without restricting the ability to access more advanced information. Now, Genetec mobiles offer a real unified experience. One of the challenges that I mentioned is the fact that we have to switch between applications, between video surveillance, access control, etc., when in all reality, if you're out and looking at some of those devices in alarm, time is often really critical. So Genetec Mobile combines video surveillance. We saw in the video the ability to navigate the timeline, consult live video, but we also provide controls over PTZ, the ability to look at debug info, add bookmarks, but also consult bookmarks and different events in the system. So that could be motion-based events, for example. Could look at video that's attached to it. Genetec Mobile also supports access control devices and events. So in this case, you can see that we can see the status of a door, lock and unlock it remotely, even activate maintenance mode, which is really useful when you're going out for for a system technician, for example. We also attach cameras that are related to the door directly in the view, which allows you to see the video feed on both sides of the door right away. And something that's new, we're also supporting automatic license recognition from our AutoView ALPR system. So you can see right here that we can see live reads as they come in, and we can also explore them for the different metadata attached to the license plate read. You also have access to a full list of reads from the device and hits from the recent history of the device with their associated data. What's interesting here is that you could use Genetec Mobile to simply go near a corner, bring it up, and look at hits as they happen and take action faster. You can also add new license plate to a hot list using a hot action within the app. So as you respond to an incident and somebody gives you a license plate number that was involved in the incident, you could enter it, synchronize it with your central database, and that would make sure that you get an alert as soon as it's read again. But where Genetec Mobile really differentiates itself is when we look at its collaboration feature set. Mobile apps are with us, mobile smartphones are with us everywhere we go, right? So if you look at some of the opportunities that I mentioned earlier related to the different communication tools with normal apps, you can see that there's a lot that is possible. So the first new thing with Genetec Mobile is the addition of location sharing. And you can see on the Security Center Plan Manager map here that I can see the different users that are currently logged in. And this runs in the background, so I'm just going to play it again so you can clearly see, right? Every logged in user will share their location when the app is open, even if it's in the background. So if you close the app, you will stop sharing your location, but while you're on shift, you simply open it at the start of the shift, and then we can see where everyone is to simplify coordination. Now, but we go a step beyond and we increase collaboration by simplifying the sharing of video and information. You can see here the new feature that allows you to send video clips from either it could be live or it could be a recorded video directly to a user through a new share button. And a user that is on their mobile phone this way will receive it. And in our example here, there's an incident at reception. Somebody at the operations center takes the alarm and sends it to the closest security guard, which we have on the map in the building here. Now, for the security guard, they will receive a message, and that's part of the new built-in messaging tools that we've introduced in Genetec Mobile that includes the message and also the recorded video clip. This eliminates the need for our guard on patrol to actually find the camera, scroll back to the moment of the incident by himself, and look at what's happening. So you can imagine that as you're responding to an incident, you're walking to the reception, you receive this, you can review the video much faster. And you can also respond to confirm that you've received it and that you are taking action. And to close the loop on the other side, obviously, we've further integrated the ability to stream video from a mobile device to the security desk client. Before, you would have had to go in the camera tree and find the smartphone user's camera. But now you can click on their icon and access their video as they're streaming live, which means that you can maintain that coordination from the operations center while maybe other security guards are responding to the situation. And to really consolidate the entire collaboration toolkit that's available, we've also merged threat levels directly in the app. No need to use a separate app anymore. So you can change the threat level at the bottom. You will have access to different threat levels that you share with your different mobile users. And it will change the mobile interface as well as the Security Operations Center interface on Security Desk. So that concludes our tour of the new Genetec mobile app and the three main pillars of Security Center 5.8. One thing I really want to come back to, however, is that 5.8 has a lot more to offer. Going through all of this would take additional sessions, so what we invite you to do is to leverage the different materials we have available on our website, or simply send us requests to webinars@genetec.com, and we'll be happy to share additional documentation with you. We wanted to keep a bit of time for Q&A, so we're going to move on now to some of the questions that I already see in the list. Now, if you're ready to make the move to 5.8 and you're already using Security Center, I encourage you to reach out to your certified Genetec partner. They will let you know the different steps to take. And something to note, Genetec Advantage plans include upgrades for free, so Security Center 5.8 is available immediately. If you don't know who your integrator of record is, simply contact the email address on the screen. We'll be happy to share the information with you. Now, if you're not using Security Center and are interested in seeing what it would look like in your own environment, get in touch with your local Genetec representative, and we'll be happy to prepare a tailored demo that will leverage some of the new features in 5.8, but also the extensive set of unified features available in Security Center. And again, reach out to the address on the screen to find your local Genetec representative. We'll be happy to schedule that next discussion. So we're going to move on to questions. I see quite a few in the list, and rest assured, if we go over the allocated time, we will remain on the line and tackle all of them.